I had one creepy experience that I've already talked about, but I have another one. This time, my friends who always go exploring told me about a time that they were just following a trail that went into the hills, and after almost reaching the freeway, they ended up near this old closed up train tunnel. They were able to squeeze through some loose fencing, and after almost wandering with nothing of interest, they eventually came to a bunch of shipping containers. When they glanced inside, they saw a ton of guns and ammo in one and just a shit ton of heavy boxes in the rest. After a few minutes of checking it out, they heard voices from further down the tunnel coming closer, so they got out of there. They said it almost smelled like the ocean towards the end of the tunnel, so it might have been near our beach. Here's some clarification for those who have asked. The place they hiked to was somewhere between Santa Barbara and Oxnard in California. They stopped on the 101 going southbound and started their hike and almost ended up returning to the car going to Oxnard at the end of the day. They did make a report to the police, but haven't heard of anything coming out of the news or otherwise. Some people said it might be smugglers, but given that the crates were unlocked and the tunnel was unguarded and that it was accessible to anyone who was wandering out there, I highly doubt that that was the case. And if it was, they were either just about to take off or they're really stupid. There's an abandoned hotel that I was checking out. I gained access through a blown out window near the indoor pool. It smelled like death inside. Come to find out, a couple of bloated dead deer and the slime collected towards the deep end of the pool. This should have been my sign to get the hell out of there, but I didn't. I made my way into the lobby and banquet areas. I came across some raccoons and squirrels who scurried away swiftly. Everything is destroyed. Even the reception desk has been ripped in half. Nothing interesting to photograph, just trash. Neat little piles of trash. After a bit of searching, I find the stairwell, and there's an odd noise coming from above that I brush it off as just rain. I decide to skip a couple of floors because they're probably in the same condition as the lobby. A lot of the exterior windows had been blown out as well. I get to the 4th floor and open up the door. I'm not really worried about how much noise I'm making because I'm confident that I'm the only sober person on the premises. As I pull the door open, that rain noise that I heard earlier suddenly ceases completely. I point my flashlight down the hallway to see hundreds of geese poke their heads out of guest rooms. I remember the moment where nothing moved and we just stared at each other for several minutes. Though I'm sure it was only 10 seconds. Here I am, standing in the middle of the hall, geese of abandoned luxury staring me down. Once the initial shock of the sight wears off, I remember that I'm only looking at half of the floor. Behind me, the geese aren't pulling the deer in the headlights thing. They're coming towards me. It's time to go. I close the stairwell door behind me, and only muffling of the cacophony that erupted once I moved. As I hustle down the stairs, I realize the signs were everywhere. There was goose shit everywhere. I hit the lobby and turn towards the pool where a group of geese have collected, as if they were trying to trap me. Luckily, they're just dumb birds. I get out to find the exterior of the hotel swarming with these fuckers. There was one lone sentinel standing on the roof, honking a loud, shrill command that the perimeter had been breached. I should have stayed to get more pictures, but I was done, covered in filth from a slip down the stairs, and I didn't feel like collecting fresh shit from the above dive bombers circling overhead. I did get this though. When I was in college, a few friends and I went to this local abandoned hotel. It was a swanky place back in the 50s, but it's just been sitting around abandoned and fenced over ever since. We walked by and saw an open window on the 2nd story ledge and ended up finding an old wooden ladder nearby on the property. We went in and hung around and saw a bit of great graffiti. The whole place is trashed with actual garbage, as well as bits of the building that were falling apart. We made it up the staircase to the 3rd floor, looking in each of the rooms as we go. The area that we're now in used to be the housing for the staff of the hotel, The third floor was of course covered in garbage from throughout the years as well. We get to the last room on the third floor. We look in and find a lit candle with no one else around. Now realizing that we were not alone, we booked it out of there. And once we were outside, we looked up to see someone watching us from one of the windows. Now we went to college in a city with a significant homeless problem and assumed that we just stumbled onto somebody's home. But that shit still freaked us out. They ended up cementing up the place after another explorer fell down an open elevator shaft and broke his legs. It has recently been renovated, and they're turning it into an apartment building. It's not the creepiest find, but definitely freaked us the hell out in the moment. This happened 8 years ago when I was a sophomore in high school. My Urbex friends and I were on a bike ride looking for cool places to explore in a relatively dilapidated area when we discovered a really creepy cave. We did some mild exploring that first day, but quickly realized it would require more gear to thoroughly explore. Flashlights, respirators, etc. About a week later, 5 of us came back with the proper gear and a camera to see what we could find inside that mine. We discovered that there was basically one main shaft that sloped downward and deeper into the earth. So we followed that main route. It was wide enough for a car to drive down and was pretty well graded, so the walking was actually pretty easy. There were many rooms, old machinery, and rusting equipment off this main shaft, but we mostly avoided it in the beginning. We were trying to not get lost or confused. Along the walls were littered with the classic abandoned graffiti. X was here, swastikas, initials and dates, phallic drawings, etc. As we got deeper and deeper, the graffiti started to really thin out. At this point, the light from the entrance was long gone. We were relying solely on our flashlights. The air was so stagnant and hazy with particles that our light from our flimsy flashlights would only maybe go 20 feet or so before getting totally obscured by the dust. Thank goodness we had those respirators. The glow sticks we had brought to mark our way to prevent getting lost were basically useless because they would disappear in the haze after only a few steps after dropping them. And we had bought 10 or so of them. At this point, we started arguing among ourselves. Several of the crew was nervous to go any deeper with the air quality being so terrible, and without a good way to prevent us from getting lost. We were probably a quarter mile into the earth now. The rest of us managed to override that sentiment of fear by assuring them that the path was easy and straightforward, so we'd have to try to get lost if we really wanted to. We were going to rely on our level-headedness, sense of direction, and flashlight battery life to get us out. Despite the agreement to push on, it was becoming very creepy for everyone. We walked for a while in silence, hearing nothing but our own movements and the steady drip of water coming from somewhere deep inside the cave. I think we were all actually pretty scared at this point, but no longer willing to admit it to one another. Then we stumbled across something that made us all stop cold. Dug into the side of the deep stone shaft we were slowly descending was a tunnel, an offshoot. It was narrow. You'd have to crouch to go through it, and it was a good few feet off the ground, so it required a scramble to reach it. But that wasn't what made us stop. It was the graffiti. Now remember, we hadn't seen any for 10 minutes or so and assumed these artists never came this deep. But something else clearly had, and the message they left was ominous. The tunnel was lined with words written in white, all of them somehow relating to death and destruction. Scrawled throughout the tunnel were the words like suffering, pain, plague, disease, and hell. It was pretty terrifying. Who else would come this far just to write a terrible message in a mysterious tunnel that broke for the main path? But there was no turning back now. We had to see where the tunnel led. Despite our fear, we were overpowered by the intense curiosity that we all had. So one by one, we crawled through the tunnel to the other side. What we found was a strange flooded chamber. Around the pool of water were many large stones, each covered with dozens of burned out tea candles. There must have been hundreds of used tea candles in this place. The walls had a few creepy monster faces and poorly graffiti on them, and the tunnel entrance back to the main shaft was ringed with a spray-painted bottle-stained mouth. What was this place? Some weird ritual site for local Satan worshippers? An elaborate hoax set up by a bunch of kids? We couldn't find much evidence to figure it all out, and we were all running out of adrenaline to keep exploring. We all crawled back out of that weird hole and back into the main shaft, where we promptly headed towards the exit. When we finally saw that pinprick of natural life coming from the real world outside, we all were flooded with relief. We never did figure out what that mysterious cavern was for, and I think I'm content to leave it a mystery. No, we didn't hear any monsters in the depths of the tunnel, or find any bloody Satan praisers themselves. But just finding that room, buried deep in an old forgotten mine, was enough to creep us all out for a very long time. Every once in a while, I'll go urban exploring with one of my friends. Usually, he just checks out abandoned houses and the odd factory or two. It can be a really cool experience for anyone who is into history, photography, or even asbestos inhalation. Today though, he decided we're going to a local abandoned hospital at night. And it's just the two of us because it'll be more intense that way. And he's evidently never seen a single horror movie in his life. Despite my mild hesitations, we ended up getting to this place as it started to get dark. We make our way into a window that someone has torn off the building. My friend gives his usual yell into the building to announce our presence, and so we don't startle anyone who might else be inside. "We're not the cops, we're just looking around and taking some pictures." By his logic, we're doing a courtesy to anyone else exploring the building who might panic if they heard us coming otherwise. And by my logic, we're announcing our presence to every homeless person in the building who might want to come steal a camera from two dumbass kids. Despite my fear, nothing bad really happened. We make it through the building, going through multiple floors and checking out the roof last. We get a ton of cool pictures and take a look at some creepy ass old bathtubs and tables they left inside the place. There's also some really cool graffiti inside, mixed in with your usual shitty tags. The whole building is pitch black except for a few spots where moonlight shone in, so we literally can only see whatever we happen to be pointing out with our phones at the time, or by using flash on the cameras. Even though I'm still worried about being murdered, I'm glad I went. I'm a little less freaked out as we're making our way back to the window that we come in. We get back into the room and hop out the window first. My buddy passes me the camera. As I take it from him, he starts climbing out the window, and a soft voice from what sounds like just 10 or so feet inside the building says, "Wait." I look at my friend and I can just barely see a silhouette standing by the doorway from where we entered the room. Now, I'm not proud of what happened next, but at the moment, the force from which my butthole puckered propelled me away from that building was enough forward momentum to last until I was at the edge of the property back towards the road. My friend followed me quickly, more so to laugh at me than out of fear. He didn't seem as worried as I was, though he agreed we definitely weren't going back. I know this isn't the most exciting story, but what terrified me at the time was that I 100% sure thought that we were alone in the building. It was dead silent aside from us, and the fact that that man, or whatever it was, waited until right where we were leaving to horrify me, and it made me realize that they could have been watching us, or worse, following us throughout that entire building, just listening to us talk, watching us take pictures, following behind. Needless to say, I don't do much exploring anymore, or at least not at night in old spooky buildings constructed before World War I. Back in the day, my friends and I would always go to this boarded up hospital and play in it. The only problem was all the doors were locked and the windows were boarded. However, there was this shed that you could climb up and jump on a car covered thing, and then there was a window that was broken where you could actually get inside. We had been inside this hospital so many times that it wasn't even creepy at all anymore. One day, we decided we were going to go explore the basement that was always flooded. We would actually try and walk down the super dark hallway that was down there. The water itself was probably 4 feet deep and murky, so you couldn't see the bottom. My friend and I walk down the stairs into the basement and are shining our flashlights down into the hallway trying to see anything. All we can see is the thing that looked like a generator and shelves, but we couldn't see much further down the hallway. We all finally muster up the courage to bring ourselves to the water, but something just does not feel right. The water was completely motionless and it got incredibly quiet. So quiet, I swear I could hear my friend's heartbeat standing next to me. My friend put one foot on a stair that was submerged, and then the other. Water rippled as he continued to descend. Then, completely out of nowhere, we hear this huge splash somewhere in the water very nearby. The kind of splash you would hear if someone cannonballed into it. We immediately bolt back up the stairs. I peeked down into the darkness to see nothing, but could definitely hear something coming down the hallway toward us. We ran all the way to the second floor, jumped off the car-covered thing so fast. We waited outside for a couple of hours and heard nothing and saw no one. We ended up going back inside and sitting at the top of the stairs and listening for anything, but heard nothing. The stairs were pretty dry at this point. One of my friends got a bright idea and threw the flashlight down the stairs into the water to try and scare whatever might be down there. After the flashlight made a splash from impact, we heard nothing, and the light disappeared into the darkness of the water. After waiting a little longer and what felt like an eternity, we then found courage to charge down the stairs screaming and hollering. We went to the base of the water and jumped in, shining our flashlights down the hall and making a ton of noise. Behind the generator was another hallway that was absolutely pitch black. We were standing in the water at this section when all of a sudden, we see this large silhouette slowly moving toward us. It looked like two barrels standing next to each other on top of the water. Then another huge splash behind them. Then it split apart and started moving towards us super quickly. We all took off and ran and got the hell out of that place as fast as we possibly could. And we never ever returned to it ever again. There's an abandoned East Coast insane asylum that I've often seen posted, both on Reddit as well as various other places around the internet. I've probably been there myself 10 or 15 times over the course of a decade, and each time I found something new. The complex is very spread out and very massive. What I've seen posted, nor even mentioned however, is the maze of tunnels beneath that complex. Connecting each building is a subterranean network of tunnels for steam, water, sewage, and electric. The tunnels are roughly 10 feet underground and very long. They lead into the basement of each structure in a portion of the complex, with an emergency escape hatch that leads out into the woods between buildings in a portion. One weird thing is that most of the entrances to the tunnel systems are hidden in the walls. I exited through a door once and found myself in a room that was the complex's post office, where I'd literally been 5 times before, and never noticed that there was a hidden passage integrated into the wood paneling. The complex has been abandoned for 20 to 30 years, so parts of the tunnel are very wet, leaking with water. When you're down in them, you constantly hear the environmental noises, as well as echoes from your own movement. There is nothing reflective down there, and there are no outside sources of light. If you don't have a bright enough flashlight, it can get kind of difficult to make out features of the things in the distance. And you're relying a lot upon the slight tonal differences of what you can see to determine what something is off in the distance before you're right upon it. Go out on a moonless night and shine an LED pin light against a concrete wall from like 15 feet away to get an idea of what I'm describing. Now for the terror you're here for. First of all, I have a stupid habit of going into these places by myself. I've recently started correcting this because you never know when an accident could happen, leaving you alone, underground, and in the dark. Last time I was in these tunnels, I was by myself with a single AA battery powered 75 100 lumen LED flashlight. Mistake number 2. During this excursion, I decided to follow the tunnel down to what was the water treatment building for the complex. This tunnel sloped downward, so the leaking water previously mentioned runs down and collects at the tunnel's end. So at the end of the tunnel, I enter this large room with 2 15-foot wall tower storing water tanks. There probably was an inch of water and muck on the floor, which makes a stick noise when you walk. I'm standing still, looking around with my flashlight, and from the opposite side of the room, around 20 feet away, I hear the ch-ch-ch. There's someone else in this underground room with me. I shine my flashlight across the room and don't see anything, but I keep hearing those wet footprints. All of a sudden, I shine the light on this human-shaped object that is just black. There's no difference in shading or anything. It's just like a black against a peach-colored concrete wall. I stammer out a hello? And all of a sudden, I can see this person's 2 eyes flash up, reflecting back my flashlight, but that is it. I don't know if it's a person in a ghillie suit or what, but it's impossible to make out anything distinguishing. I don't know what kind of weirdo sits out in a full black getup to rummage around underground anyway. At this point, I flip the fuck out. I spin 180 degrees on my heels and bolt. I'm flying up that incline tunnel, slipping and sliding all over the place on the damp concrete. I fell a handful of times and sprained my wrist pretty badly. Got some cuts on my knee too. That run through the underground tunnel felt like an eternity. If you've ever seen the subway scene from the movie 28 Weeks Later, that's the closest description I can offer you. It was the closest thing I've ever experienced to a living nightmare. I've never been that terrified in all of my life. Looking back, I'm sure whomever I met down there was probably just as terrified as I was. I have no reason to believe that they followed me. They probably just ran back the way they came, same as I did. I noticed that they didn't have a flashlight on, so what I think probably happened is that they saw my light, pulled a hoodie over their head, and turned their light off, and then tried to hide as best they could. Sorry if this got a little long and rambly. I just wanted to share my part here. If there's a takeaway from this, it can be summed up in a single fantastic sentence. Don't enter strange underground tunnels and through hidden doors beneath long abandoned and forgotten insane asylums with a single tiny flashlight when you're all by your lonesome. Hey everyone, thanks for listening if you stuck around to this point. If you haven't yet, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell to be noticed when future episodes come out. If you have a true scary story of your own, feel free to send it to my email or post it to my subreddit. You can stalk me on Twitter, you can stalk me on Facebook, and you can also stalk me on Instagram. All these links are below. What's up everybody? Don't know if you liked this episode. Hope you did. Sorry, it's been one of those days. It's been a long day. It's been a good day, but a long day. And I'm having issues with Audition, and it's very frustrating, so I'm just kind of annoyed at this point, but whatever. The show must go on, right? What's up, Bubba?
What's up?
What do you want?
You help me?
Yeah, give me 1 second, and I'll be out there. Okay, I'm almost done. Alright?
We can play.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, not editing this, not removing any of that because I don't want to take the time to do that. I've been editing all day and I don't want to do that anymore. So, I hope you liked this episode. There'll be a nice True Scary Stories episode out this Thursday. I'm not uploading on Friday anymore. For some reason, every single time my episodes do awful when I upload on Friday. I think everybody's busy, so Thursdays is going to be the new day. So look out for that. And drop a comment of what you want to hear next, like theme-wise for next week, because I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next week for like a theme, and I kind of could use some ideas, so I'll see you then. Cheers.